Recent advances in biomedical technology and therapeutic procedures have generated a moral crisis in modern medicine. The vast strides made in medical science and technology recently have created options which only a few years ago would have been relegated to the realm of science fiction, and to a significant degree now has the ability to exercise control not only of the ravages of disease, but over man's very processes of life and death. With the unfolding of new discoveries and techniques, the scientific and intellectual communities have developed a keen awareness of the ethical issues which rise out of man's advanced ability to control his own destiny. In response to the concern for questions, the future thrust of is emerging the rapidly developing field of biomedical ethics. The first medical ethical question from the Jewish standpoint is whether or not a human being is allowed to become a physician and heal the sick. Does the practice of medicine by a mortal physician constitute an act of interference with the deliberate designs of Hashgacha Evyonah, divine providence? Does a physician play God when he practices medicine? This question is based on a scriptural passage in which God proclaims himself to be the healer of the sick. ויאמר אם שמוע תשמע לקול השם אלוקיך וישר בעיניו תעשה האזנת למצוותיו ושמרת כל חוקיו כל המחלה אשר שמתי במצרים ולא עשית עליך כי אני השם רפאך. So God is saying, I am God, your doctor. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the doctor, how can we as physicians play God and practice medicine? Ibn Ezra, in his commentary, states that just as God healed the drinkable waters at Marah for the Jew, so too will HaKadosh Baruch Hu heal all plagues from the face of the earth, and there will be no need for physicians. This is perhaps the basis for the Karahitic objection to human healing. The Karaites interpreted the above scriptural passage, Ki Ani Hashem Rafecha, literally and totally rejected the permissibility of human healing. They vehemently objected to medicine and physicians and treated themselves entirely on prayer, Tehillim, Tefillah, for their healing, as stated in the Talmud. In Masechta Shabbos, Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, it says, Rav Yitzchak Reg Rabbi Yehuda, V'olam Yivakesh Adam Rachamim Shelo Yechla, She'im Yechla, Omrim Lo Havei Zechut V'hipater. A man must always pray not to become ill, for if he becomes ill, it is demanded of him to show merit in order to be healed. The multitude of interpretations of the scriptural phrase, Ki Ani Hashem Rafecha, indicates that this verse is not to be understood literally. There is no prohibition inherent from this verse against a mortal becoming a physician and healing the sick. In fact, specific permissibility and sanction for the physician to practice medicine is given in the Torah to the physician. However, he must always recognize that God is the true healer of the sick, and that a doctor is only an instrument of God. He's a shaliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'aretz in administrations to the sick. Although studying medicine is permissible in Jewish law, it is optional. You don't have to go to medical school and study medicine. You can become a lawyer or an engineer instead. However, once a person has become a physician, then it is obligatory upon him to heal the sick. The biblical mandate for the physician to heal is based upon two scriptural commandments, V'rapo yirapeh and Lo sa'amod al dam re'echa. Let's start with Rapeh Yirapeh. The Torah says in Yakum Yitzalech Bachutz Al Mishan Tov Nikah HaMakeh Rak Shifto Yitain V'Rapo Yirapeh. The Torah, the Gemara asks, why does the pasuk say twice Rapo Yirapeh? What is this Kefil Haloshin? And the Gemara says in Rabbi Kama Nikan Shenitin Rishus Rofim L'Rapos. V'lo yomrinu Rachmona Mache V'iyu Maseh. We don't say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made you sick and we are going to heal you. We have to recognize that only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the true healer. Thus, we have specific license to become physicians and heal the sick from V'rapo Yirapeh. Ibn Ezra, in his commentary on the Mishnah, states that it is obligatory from the Torah. This is Rambam now, in his Perush HaMishnayot on Nedarim, Dalad, says, Chayev min haTorah l'rofei l'rapos es hacholim. Zeh nichlal b'ma shekatuv. You have to return a lost object. That is a positive commandment in the Torah. Vim lo kara v'lecha, says the Torah, v'lo yadati v'asaftoi el toyer b'secha ad rosh achicha otza. If you find a lost object, you have to keep it in your house until the rightful owner shows up to claim it. Rambam states that the law of restoration of health, of restoration of Hashavat Abeda, the Rabot Gufo. If a person has lost his health and the physician is able to give it back to him, then it's a chiyuv of Hashavat Abeda, the Rabot Gufo, says Rambam. So the Torah gave permission to the physician to heal. Moreover, this is a biblical religious precept, a mitzvah, as included in the category of saving life. And if he withholds his services, it is as if he is shedding blood. That's where Lo Samod Al Dam Re'echa comes in. Lo Seilech Ochel B'Yamecha, Lo Samod Al Dam Re'echa, Ani Hashem. Hashem is saying, you cannot stand by and watch somebody die and you can help him and you don't help him. That's, you're being over, you're transgressing. The passage refers to duties of human beings to their fellow men and the moral principles which the sages expounded and applied to every phase of civil and criminal law. One example is given in the Talmud as follows. How do we know that if one sees a man drowning in the ocean or in the river or mauled by a beast or attacked by robbers, and he is able to help the person, he is obligated to do so, and if he doesn't do so, he has violated Lo Samod Al Dam Re'echa. Rambam codifies the above Talmudic passage in his Mishnah Torah, where he states in Hilchos Chetzeach, Perek Aleph, Halacha Yitayin, whoever is able to save another and does not do so transgresses the commandment Lo Samod Al Dam Re'echa. Similarly, if one sees another drowning in the sea, or being mauled by, being attacked by bandits, or being attacked by a wild animal and is able to rescue him, and does not rescue him, he has transgressed the injunction Lo Samod Al Dam Re'echa. Such a case of drowning in the sea is considered the loss of one's body, and therefore the physician is obligated to save a whole body. Certainly, he must be obligated to save only one part of the body, namely the body part that is diseased or afflicted with a disorder. If one asks why God granted physicians license and even mandate to heal the sick, one can offer the following explanation. The cardinal principle of Judaism is that human life is of infinite value. The preservation of human life takes precedence over all commandments in the Bible except three: idolatry, murder, and incest. Avodah zarah, shlichat damim, v'lu arayot. Life's value is absolute and supreme. Thus, an old man or woman, a mentally retarded person, or a defective newborn, or a dying cancer patient all have the same right to life as anyone else. In order to preserve the life, even Shabbat or Yom Kippur may be desecrated, or must be desecrated, and all other rules and laws, the Isa and the Rabbanon, are suspended. Pikuach Nefesh is doche kol haTorah kula, as you all know. The value of human life is also illustrated in the Gemara in Mesechta Sanhedrin, where it says, "Kol hamakayim nefesh achas miYisrael ki'ilu kayim olam molei." If you save one Jewish life, you have saved an entire world. That's all the physician's permissibility and obligation to heal. How about the patient's obligation to seek healing? Does a sick person have the right to go to a doctor if he is sick? Or should he let his illness run its course without interference and just go to shul and say tehillim and tefillah? Should a person rely solely on the divine providence, on Hashgacha Elyon, for his physical and his spiritual healing? From the previous comments, it is clear that the Torah gives specific sanction to the physician to heal, and according to most authorities, it is obligatory for him to heal and use his medical skills to heal the sick. However, it is not clear from there that the patient is obligated or permitted to seek human healing when he is sick. Could there be a distinction between heavenly afflictions and man-made induced sicknesses in regard to patient practice seeking medical aid when sick? How does one define heavenly illness? What is cancer? Is that God-induced, namely genetic, or is this man-induced from drugs, viruses, or radiation, or both? The number of such questions is endless, and lengthy prose could be written attempting to analyze them. There are numerous Talmudic citations which suggest the position that not only allows but requires a patient to seek medical aid when sick. If a man is bitten by a snake on the Shabbat, then one may call a physician, even if it means getting into your car and driving it to the physician's house. In other words, desecrating the Shabbat because the value of human life is so great, because Pikuach Nefesh is doche kol haTorah kula, as I've already mentioned. Other than the Kavorim, who strongly objected to physicians and medicines, Ramban, who's already been mentioned by an earlier speaker, himself a physician, seems to stand alone in his apparent prohibition for patients to seek medical aid. It is possible that he is only talking to the tzaddikim about righteousness, who do not develop these illnesses because of their tzidkus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps them away from illness. However, the population at large are allowed to seek healing. One of the most important sources of patient being allowed to heal is from the Rambam again in his Mor Nevuchim in Hilchot Deot, Perek Daled, where he says, "Hoyel v'heyois haguf bori v'sholem midarchei Hashem hu shahayiyah sheyovim es Hashem o sheyedas davar v'yidias Hashem aborei v'hu choleh." Fichach tzorch lahalchik es atzmo midvorim amavdim es haguf u'lahanig atzmo midvorim amavrim v'hamachlim. One has to live a healthy lifestyle in order to fulfill the mitzvot Hashem. One has to exercise every day. One has to sleep 8 hours a day, although I'm sure the Rambam did not follow his own teaching. One has to eat only healthy foods. One should not smoke. One should not drink alcohol. One should not be addicted to drugs. All of these are things which make one sick and might even endanger one's life. So a healthy lifestyle is Rambam, in fact, devoted an entire sefer Rafur called the Regimen Sanitatis, a regimen of health, which he wrote for the Sultan of Egypt, but it's just as applicable today as it was then. Now, physician's fees. Is a doctor allowed to get paid for his services? In Talmudic times, physicians, teachers, judges, and rabbis were all categorized as together as professionals who should not receive or accept compensation for their professional services. Why? HaKadosh Baruch Hu taught Moshe for nothing, and therefore we should teach for nothing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges for nothing, and therefore we should judge for nothing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu heals the sick for nothing, and therefore we physicians should heal for nothing. Nowadays, however, physicians, teachers, judges, and rabbis have no other occupation, and therefore are fully occupied with their professions and are entitled to receive full compensation for their services, since everyone must earn a living. The physician, all physicians are entitled to receive payment for their services. However, nowadays a license is required to practice medicine. It is difficult to say that healing is a commandment which all can perform. Only a well-trained and licensed physician can do so. Therefore, a physician is allowed to charge a fee since other physicians are available, and the individual physician is not obligated to heal that particular patient without receiving payment. However, if he is the only qualified physician available, then he is entitled to charge for his expenses and lost time, for his tilcha and his bittul zman, which is all that a doctor could ask compensation for during the Middle Ages. The patient pays extra to a physician if he wants to have a specialist to take care of him in the hospital and not just receive standard care. Thus, there are two types of patients in the hospital. One that receives standard medical care therapy from the medical staff, and one who is wealthy and can afford to be treated by a more experienced and expert physician. In June 2013, the Health Ministry of the State of Israel appointed a committee to choose a health plan for the general population. The committee was charged with selecting from a list of medications those that should be added to the already existing basket of medications, the sal hatrufot. Patients able to pay could purchase any medication, even if it was not on the approved list or in the sal hatrufot. One cannot avoid the ethical and moral issues that this private practice of medicine is available only for the rich. This is the issue of limited or scarce resources. If the government of Israel would allocate enough money, then all the medications could be put into the sal hatrufot. But obviously there isn't enough money to do that. If two new patients come to the emergency room and need an intensive care bed, a heart attack victim in shock, and a massive GI bleeder in shock, there's only one available ICU bed. Who gets the bed, the GI bleeder or the cardiac patient in shock? How does one decide? Which of the criteria does one use? Does not giving that ICU bed to one patient condemn the other patient to death because they're both critically ill? The decision is an insolvable ethical dilemma. In my hospital, in my former hospital in New York, we had a shortage of dialysis machines. We only had 3 dialysis machines and 40 patients needed dialysis. How does one choose who gets the dialysis and who doesn't get the dialysis? Social worth is not a criteria to be used, meaning that if Albert Einstein needs dialysis and an alcoholic drug addict needs dialysis, well, we will take Albert Einstein because look what he's done for the world. and this alcoholic drug addict obviously is not contributing to the world at all. Now, scarce resources or rationing does not only involve machines or ICU beds. Again, in my former hospital in New York, we had a shortage of nurses for the night shift. So that's a shortage of people. So you can have shortages of money, you can have shortages of machines, you can have shortages of ICU beds, you can have shortages of people. It's an unending ethical dilemma for physicians, hospitals, and hospital administrators. If the director of the Department of Medicine, which I was, receives $50,000 in new money for 2015, what should he do? Should he buy more dialysis machines, or build more ICU beds, or import nurses from the Far East? Is it ethical for the socialized medicine countries such as Canada, where patients have to wait a very long time on a very long line for surgery or chemotherapy, or even a specialized x-ray such as a CT scan? Yet the rich obviously can afford to get that treatment or diagnostic test immediately. They just come across the border from Canada to the United States and they can get it. So let me conclude on physicians' fees. In Judaism, a physician is given divine license to heal and even mandate to heal. The physician is entitled to reasonable fees and compensation for his services to the community on a part-time basis only. They have no other profession or no other way, as they did in the Talmud. He used to make shoes in the Talmud, and therefore that was his job, his occupation. Excessive fees are discouraged but are not prohibited if the patient agrees in advance to the larger fee. Indigent or poor patients should be treated for a reduced fee or no fee at all. These principles are applicable both to the salaried physician as well as a physician in private practice who charges fee for services. So I've spoken and illustrated some of the current ethical dilemmas in the allocation and limitation of limited medical resources, and discussed some of the current practices with which to cope with these dilemmas. Obviously, it would be naive to say that the government in the United States should buy one less tank and one less ship and put all that money into dialysis machines and ICU beds and nurses. That is not going to happen, nor will that happen in Israel. Money is not unlimited. You can't just keep on printing money as they do in the United States now. Social worth I've already spoken about, and that is not an ethical criterion to use. The only ethical criteria to use if you have 2 dialysis machines and 40 patients who need them is first come, first served. First patient who shows up who needs that treatment gets it. In World War II, Chief Rabbi Herzog was asked about a pediatric ward where they had an outbreak of strep throat, and there was only enough penicillin there for 5 patients. But there were 40 patients, 40 children on that pediatric ward, so how should he decide which of the children get that limited amount of penicillin? And his answer was, first come, first served. You walk into the ward and the first child that you come across who needs the penicillin, you give it to them. And the same is true of dialysis machines or ICU beds. Now, it's a cardinal principle in Judaism that one may not sacrifice one life to save another. Classic example is given in Talmud is if a bunch of goyim come and say to a group of Jews, give us one of you and we will kill him. but if you don't, we'll kill all of you. So the answer is that they should not give over any Israelite, but any Jew, but they should all allow themselves to be killed, because one life is not more precious than another, and that is your blood is not redder than my blood. These dilemmas are faced year after year, both here in Israel and in Chutz La'aretz, making the hard decisions each and every drug that is being introduced into the Sal HaTrufot. The issue is heartbreaking since there's not enough for everybody. We all witness it and read about it in the written and electronic media. Let me conclude by saying that Judaism views each human being as being of supreme and infinite value. It is the obligation of both individuals and society to provide, in general, to provide for the well-being and health of its population. This fundamental principle should guide the physician making life and death decisions at the bedside and individual patients, as well as governmental bodies who are responsible for deciding short and long-term health needs and priorities for the population as a whole. Rambam died on December 13th in the year 1204, which in the Hebrew calendar was Chav Teves 4965, which was just 4 days ago, as Rambam's Yotzeit, as I'm sure you all know. The Christian, Muslim, and Jewish worlds mourned him. His literary ability was incredible, and his knowledge encyclopedic. He mastered everything known in the fields of theology, mathematics, law, philosophy, astronomy, ethics, and of course medicine. As a physician, he treated disease by the scientific method, not by guesswork, superstition, or rule of thumb. His attitude towards the practice of medicine came from his deep religious background, which made the preservation of life and health a divine commandment, a mitzvah. His inspiration lives on through the years, and his positions as one of the medical giants of history is indelibly recorded, now that his medical writings are available in several languages. He was physician to sultans and princes, and as Sir William Osler said, he was Prince of Physicians. The heritage of his great medical writings is being more and more appreciated. To the Jewish people, he symbolized the highest spiritual and intellectual achievement of man on this earth, as so aptly stated and written on his kever, Mimoshe ad Moshe Lokom Kamoshe. From Moshe ben Amram to Moshe ben Maimon, there never was a man like Moshe, and none has since. Thank you very much.
We want to thank deeply to Professor Rosner, who devoted his life to translate Rambam's books into the English language, and we are very happy to know now that he's one of us. He's a sovereign now, you know. Chaluk Kapayim.